1. Precursor. I've aged since then. I do not fall for these tricks as easily as I did then. I still hope for the good in people, but I usually doubt it's there for a while. I went to beauty school just after high school, so I was just learning what it was like to be an adult. Work, go to school, and socialize all at the same time. If you've ever gone to beauty school, you know the hours are pretty lengthy. And it's a lot of work in a short amount of time. You also know that you're mostly crammed with a lot of women of different ages and few boys. If there's a straight man in school, and he's even mildly attractive, obviously considering you're attracted to that type of person, most women in school are just so in awe because it's the only male person we are seeing during most of our weeks. That takes me to Dave, a few years older than me, tall, drives a Ducati to school, mysterious and handsome. Every girl was always putting on a little extra makeup, turning their hips towards him, flirting when he was around. He was cute, quiet, and always knew what to say. I wasn't as interested in catching his eye till he randomly asked me to meet up with him for a bite one day after school. I was single, needing to experience dating for the first time, and he didn't seem that bad to hang out with. Things started off very sweet and genuine. He sent goodnight texts, joked with me at school, and even genuinely seemed like he wanted to hang out more and more. We'd go to bars, and he knew everyone, so I could just get right in. I was underage at the time. We'd go eat, see shows, two-step, drink. I felt like I was starting to feel like an adult, enjoying the life, and being wooed by a handsome, slightly older man. We'd drive around on his bike. He'd take me to nice, quiet dinners, always offered to pay, and even did little things like hold his arm out when I walked downstairs or off a curb. I had never experienced this type of gentleman before, but as quickly as the sweet dates came, so did a very weird, calculated, and controlling behavior. He would start to ask why I didn't smile with my teeth. Was it because I was embarrassed of myself? He would sit behind me working at school and taunt me about how sad I was. He'd say things like, "Don't say like that," or "say things that way. That's not what ladies do." And I'm a lady, right? "Don't wear that lipstick, it is trashy." But I guess maybe I was being inappropriate. Maybe he's right. I should act more like an adult than a child, be better at school, look more like an adult. He brought me to his house one night, a place he rented a room from. Suddenly, this stoic Edward Cullen type turned into a person I didn't recognize. Outside of the random mood shift, his room was filled with clothing and garbage, like old Gatorade bottles filling the floors. There was a TV and a bed, of all the things I could really make out in the room. He brushed dirt off his bed for me to sit down. We hung out for a while, and he oddly confessed he never brushes his teeth. Okay. While looking at his room, I could believe that. He also mentioned that he just bought new clothes when he needed them, and never washed the dirty ones, just left them there. This was all in the first 2 or 3 weeks. Kinda red flag, if you ask me. The lights were off at one point, and we're watching a show. And I see a light like a cell phone right outside the window behind the TV. I jump and get his attention, but he had to have seen. He brushes it off, saying it must just be a roommate, though I notice he's texting someone at the same time. I let it go for the night, eventually go home, but still feel uncomfortable. Then the phone calls start happening, and the stories of his ex. They'd lived together. She was 10 years older than him, and had a 6-year-old kid. She was crazy. If he and I would hang out, I'd suddenly start getting calls from an unknown number the minute I walked in my door. They would ring till my voicemail got them, and no one would say a word till the message ran out of time. They'd happen every 10 minutes, or 3 or so hours. I asked him about this, if it was him, and he said it may just be his crazy ex. But how would she have my number? He'd say, "Well, I had to give her some of her things, and she stole my phone at one point, must have taken your number." Still, the gentlemanly dates would happen, and the gifts, oh the gifts. Sending roses and coffee to my work, showing up with massage and spa packages every week. We still saw each other at beauty school almost every day, and he'd be kind, but it was always hush-hush until it was outside of school. I was torn. Is this person lying? Or is this the first kind person to want to date me? Maybe he just has some flaws and a crazy ex. Then the texts and Facebook messages started coming, clarifying it was her. He's told me about your fucked up life and the secrets you've told him. I know he just saw you. I know you were just at his house. I was outside his window looking in. Your red dress was nice. He laughs about you, poor you, just a whore little girl. And shit like that over and over. I'd block her, then she'd have friends send me the same BS. She freaked me out, and he always denied it and apologized for her behavior. Then there were days he'd show up for school, and she would text me during the days saying they were together, sending pictures of him. I tried to confront him, but he always denied having anything to do with her, and repeating that she wanted to ruin his life. Then she started going to my work, telling my coworkers she was my friend, and would color things on kids' menus. Like Boy Slayer 666 plus Dave, heart her. And tell them she wanted me to have it. She sent me a random picture of him in a booth at my work, and I'd put the pieces together when I got there and got her notes, asking my coworkers where she was sitting and what she looked like. It was gross and embarrassing, let alone crazy. My car was broken into at school and nothing was taken from it but a bill that had my address on it. I was then so scared. I'd come home at any point in time and she'd start calling over and over as soon as I closed the door behind me. I felt trapped. She would call my work and school saying she was my mom and try to get more info on me. Or call them as a customer trying to get me fired. My roommates finally kicked me out because they were rightfully freaked, so I turned to the police. They put me in contact with a detective, who I handed all of the calls, texts, and messages plus notes she left at my work. I never answered the phone or responded to a single message from her. I had hundreds of calls, texts for at least a month. They came in every day from the same number. I never blocked that number after the first few were blocked, so I could keep a log of all the attempts. Plus I kept a journal of every incident leading up to me coming to the police, just in case. I watch a lot of crime docs. He told me there was nothing he could do to trace the number back to a specific person, and since she hadn't threatened my physical safety, his hands were tied. The very next day he calls me confused, and when I asked what the hell he meant, he said, "You're calling a mother nonstop through the night, terrifying her and her kid." Because I was the 20-year-old and she was 36, of course he's going to believe the adult, but I never called her. He asks me to come to his office to show me his evidence he has against me. She's forwarded him tons of texts saying things like "you're a little whore cunt, who I hope loses her kid," and I just broke down. I would never say something like that to someone. And I know I didn't send these tens of texts, especially overnight when I had school the next day. He didn't believe me and dismissed me. He ultimately turned against me and was now on her side. This was crushing. I broke things off for good with Dave, basically told him to fuck the fuck off. We still had to go to school together, and he was a complete dick. I embarrassed myself in front of my friends defending him for so long, my work, my school, though I had to beg to make sure this girl didn't come around again, and a detective who ultimately didn't believe a word I said, just to get some peace. My friends were tired of seeing me scared, stressed, and constantly talking about this weird situation happening to me. I was over it all. She finally left me alone once I moved, got a new car, new phone, deleted social media, but it still freaks me out that we live in the same town. She messaged me a few years ago from a different account when I was back on social media, and said she was sorry, that she was manipulated by Dave, and that he did this to many girls. That was disturbing and gut-wrenching to me. Did a mother of a 6-year-old really have nothing better to do than play fucked-up games with a sociopath? Maybe two sociopaths together, I guess. I don't know. 2. When I was 11, almost 12, the woman living above me was a coke dealer. The night of my 12th birthday, she went missing. Not long after, her boyfriend came down to ask if he could use our phone. This was 2004, so having a cell phone was more of an exception than a rule, at least in my area. For a little context, I was home alone at the time while my mom was at work about a 5-minute walk away. My mom had let our neighbor and her boyfriend come in to use our phone several other times before, so I assumed nothing was wrong with it and let him in, bringing him into the living room, which is towards the front of our apartment, to use the phone in there. He picks up the receiver, dials a number, waits a few seconds, then hangs up the phone. He does this a couple more times before the front door of the building opens. You can easily hear the front door open from where we were. It's a heavy door, the walls are thin, and the way our building is set up, it's a small, old, single-family house, converted into apartments. My mom's apartment was the only one on the first floor, and our upstairs neighbor's apartment was the only one above us. Irrelevant, but there was also a much smaller apartment below us. My neighbor's boyfriend looked at me, put his finger on his lips like he was trying to shush me, and told me not to tell anyone he was here before speed-walking to my room at the other end of the apartment. I watched my bedroom door close right before there was a loud, hard cop-like knock on the door. My jaw dropped as I opened the door to see a cop. He asked if my neighbor's boyfriend was there, and, being scared, I stammered out, "Yeah, he just went into my room." The officer asked if he could come in, which I agreed to, and as he was coming in, he asked if I could let his partner in the back door and lead them to my room. We walked together to the back of the apartment, and I let his partner in. The back door to the apartment was right next to my bedroom door, but we had to walk around the kitchen to get there. There was just barely enough space to walk between the two doors to fit a narrow rectangular table against it without blocking the path to either door. After I let them into my room, I watched as they pulled my neighbor's boyfriend out of my bedroom closet. As they brought him out of my room towards the back door, which just led to an enclosed fire escape, they told me to go wait in the living room while they brought him out the back door. I walked back to the living room, and after they closed the door, I couldn't hear what they were saying. But I could hear the distinct sound of metal clicking and quickly realized that he had just been handcuffed. Still scared, I waited for the police car to drive away before grabbing my keys, making sure the back door was locked, and locking the front door on my way out before running to my mom's work crying. Pretty sure I cut the 5-minute trip into about 2 minutes, and I've never been a fast runner. I was fueled entirely by adrenaline and fear at that point, and I just wanted my mom. When I told her what had happened, my mom was pissed that they had used me the way they had, hiding out in a child's bedroom closet of all places, or to try and keep the cops from finding him. She gave me a short but gentle lecture that night about not letting people in to use the phone, telling me I was not to let people use our phone even if I knew them unless she was home. I don't want to know exactly what he was wanted for, nor do I want to know what would have happened if the cops had not shown up. I don't know if he had known that the cops were on their way and he had come to my apartment specifically to hide from them, or if he was up to something else and knew it was the cops at the front door of the building. Old upstairs neighbor's boyfriend? Let's not meet again. Never. 3. Here's the setup. I live on a little dirt road in southern Ohio, which sounds rural and farmy, but it sits right up against a complex of subsidized apartments, and a major thoroughfare for the area. It's a weird mix of transients and long-time residents, young families, and lone elderly people. One house might be meticulously kept and maintained, but then the neighbor might have a jet ski in the yard, and a tree wrapped in chicken wire as a makeshift cage for the pet parrot. Not a random example, it's a real thing. I have lived here for nearly 10 years, and for more than 9 of those years, it's just been my daughter and I. She's 10 now. But I still don't like to let her play in the yard alone, and I'm obsessive about keeping the doors closed and deadbolted at all times, even when we're just chilling at home. I keep to myself and don't ask questions or cause problems. I'm an introvert whose primary goal in life is to leave and be left alone. And then Tom moved in. So imagine that the neighborhood is kind of laid out like a 4-rung ladder. I lived on the 3rd rung, and going left or right takes you to a road that leads to that aforementioned main thoroughfare and exits the neighborhood. Tom moved into a house near one of these exit roads, just a few houses down from me, on the opposite side of the street, which I was wholly unaware of until I was out in my yard one day a few years ago, and a passing car slowed and rolled the window down. Now, I've had sketchy experiences with scammers and solicitors in the neighborhood before. There's a whole other story about a group that tried to convince me to get in their car and take money out of an ATM for them. So I'm highly skeptical and suspicious of any strangers that just stop for a chat. Plus, I've never seen this guy before. Heavy-set, salt-and-pepper hair, heavy-lidded eyes, probably in his 50s at least. I'm 26 at the time, so he has to be around twice my age. So Tom slows the car and rolls down the passenger window. He says something, but I can't hear him, so I take a hesitant step closer to the vehicle, hoping he's just asking for directions. "Hey, girl!" All my hackles immediately go up at the positively greasy way he says the word girl. "I'm Tom, just moved in on down the street there." "Oh," I tell him off my footing. "Okay." "What's your name, honey?" Now, calling me honey is usually a great way to royally piss me off. But there was something about him, even in those first few moments, that set off alarm bells. Sometimes it's not a big deal to tell a creep to fuck off, but other times there's a voice that goes, "This one's a time bomb, do not set him off." So I tell him my name in the hope that he's just being neighborly because, hey, maybe he's a nice grandpa who hasn't gotten the memo about using girl and honey. It's Southern Appalachia. He wouldn't be the only one. But then, "You got a boyfriend?" I think every woman probably has that little "oh god" moment every time this question gets asked by a rando. And I'm so taken aback and still trying to feel out the interaction that I just say something in the negative, because it's true. I don't have a boyfriend, for good reason. I'm gay. But at this point in my life, that's still very private information, and I don't feel obligated or inclined to provide that detail to him. "You should let me take you out sometime," he says with that Appalachian twang. "We can have a few beers." At this point, all of my skin is crawling, and I decline as politely as I can. He persists, and the interaction feels like it takes a lifetime, but I'm guessing it's about 10 or 15 minutes before I successfully inch my way back to my front door and make an excuse to go back inside. I was hoping that would be the last time I would have to talk to Tom, but of course it wasn't. For weeks it seemed like every time I stepped outside there was Tom in his car, slowing down to talk to me about this or that, but mostly trying to convince me to go out with him. "When are we gonna go out to dinner?" I always said no as politely as I could. It was annoying and stressful, but manageable. Then it escalated. I'm sitting at home one day and there's a knock at my door. I don't have a peephole or any means of knowing who's at my door without sticking my whole damn head in my front window, so mostly I just don't answer the door unless I'm expecting someone. If it's someone I know, they'll call me on my phone or announce themselves at the door. So I just let the knocking go, but then my doorbell rings. Then there's more knocking and more knocking and more knocking. So finally I'm like, maybe the neighbor's house is on fire or something, I don't know. I answer the door, and of course it's Tom. "Hey girl," he says with a slick, ominous grin that never reaches his eyes. "How you doing?" I want to tell him to go screw himself, but now more than ever my instincts are telling me to not make him angry. He is clearly not afraid to push the boundary, and he lives basically just 2 or 3 houses down. All I can imagine is him going home and stewing over my insult, my rejection, and then only having to walk like 2 minutes to get back at me. So I make the conversation as short as possible, decline all his advances as politely as possible, and deadbolt my door as quickly as possible once he's gone. He starts coming around at least once a day, and I stop answering the door. He persists with his knocking, pounding loudly and angrily on the door when I won't answer. But I'm not going to voluntarily engage with this dude in any way. One day I'm sitting on my living room floor working on something when the knocking starts. I ignore it. It gets more insistent and angry. He calls my name, but he can't prove I'm home, so fuck him. And then he tries the handle of my door. I always deadbolt the door, thank God, but the actual door handle is usually unlocked. So I was sitting right there, not 3 feet from the door, when I saw and heard it turn violently. If it hadn't been deadbolted, he would have walked right in and found me sitting on the floor. I probably should have called the cops, but I had never called the cops on anyone before. It seemed so extreme. He went away shortly after, and I just let it go. So stupid. On another day, I'm mowing my lawn, headphones in, when I look up. Here comes Tom. I cannot get away from this dude, and it's starting to make me feel absolutely trapped. Of course he wants to talk, and because I'm a non-confrontational moron at that time, I stop mowing and pull out my headphones. He tells me he can help me with the mowing. A pretty girl like me shouldn't have to mow her own yard. All I gotta do is come down and ask him. He tells me how he helps out Eric all the time. Eric lives 2 houses down from me, almost directly across from Tom. And Eric is a constant habitual public drunk. He doesn't bother anyone, just staggers around his yard, hangs out on the couch in his driveway, and feeds the stray cats. Which is problematic because it means we have a booming population of feral half-mad cats running amok. But I feel for him. I'm an animal person, I get it. I've seen Tom and Eric together sometimes, and I guess they're friends. Tom says he mows Eric's grass, and he can mow mine too. But I've never seen Tom mow anything. And besides, holy shit, man, just leave me alone. He goes on to say he sees me driving by his house sometimes. Yeah, there's only 2 ways off this street, and the shorter route is past his house. So I have, by default, driven past his house, but I won't anymore. Never again. I will take the long way if it kills me. I decline his help. I decline and decline and decline. I start avoiding being outside at all costs. I usher my daughter as quickly as I can to and from the car. I carry groceries in as quickly as possible. Even then he can see me from his house, and as I'm rushing toward the door, I will sometimes hear a loud, low wolf whistle, and will look up to see Tom waving at me. I usually pretend I don't see or hear him and deadbolt the door as quickly as I can. At some point in the following days and weeks I order a pizza. When there's a knock at the door, I answer it instantly. For a bewildering second, I can't figure out why my pizza man is shirtless. But it's not my pizza man, it's Tom, and his enormous bare beer gut. He's swaying a little as he leans in against my doorframe. He pushes a piece of paper into my hand and explains it's his phone number. He asks again if I've got a boyfriend yet. At this point, I'm desperate and I feel like it's a bad idea to just blurt out, "I'm a fucking lesbian, Tom!" For one, I feel like this won't deter him. It might just make him angry and make me a target for some homophobic retaliation. In fact, it might make me a target for the whole neighborhood, which sounds extreme, but the first year I lived there, a guy was beaten to death just up the street. He wasn't gay, and it's a longish story, but I always stayed aware that violence wasn't an impossibility. Plus, I don't have a girlfriend either. It's just me and my daughter, all the time. And I just need this dick to leave me alone. I've never met someone who so completely put me on edge. I kept thinking how easy it would be for him to just push past me into the house. I could see him doing it in my head. There was this constant feeling that he was just on the verge of moving or pouncing. So I lie to him and say that yes, I have a boyfriend and we're very happy, thank you. So much hetero bliss. He grins that dark, greasy grin and says, "I ain't seen no man around here." He's watching me in my house, watching who comes and goes. This and the fact that he's actually trying to challenge my lie makes my blood go cold. Like it's a game to him. Because he doesn't say it angrily, he says it like it's cute. Like he's caught me against a wall, like I'm prey. And he knows I'm defenseless. I mean, I'm not defenseless, even as I'm imagining him pushing his way into the house. I'm also imagining what I can use as a weapon, planning to go straight for his eyes, his nose, the groin. I wouldn't go down without a fight, that's for sure. But I make up something stupid, like how my pretend boyfriend is in the military, and he's away right now, but we're very happy, and no, I don't want to have any of the beer you're carrying with you for some reason. He launches into a litany of questions about my pretend soldier boyfriend. How many trucks does he have? Is he good-looking? Do I think Tom is good-looking? Does he take care of me the way Tom could take care of me? Is Tom good-looking? Yes, he asked that twice. Tom has 2 trucks, you know. He could take care of me. Is my boyfriend a black guy? The last question shuts me down entirely and somehow makes me both more scared and more angry. I already know he's creepy, but now he's racist and creepy? The guy keeps getting worse and worse. I rebuke him again and tell him I have to go. He says, "Well, what your boyfriend don't know won't hurt him." I make him leave. He comes around periodically for a few more years, leaves some gifts at my door at some point, an old doll and some kind of toys from his garage. I think they were for my daughter, but I just threw them away. It seems to go on forever, and I debate calling the cops. I keep thinking that he's just right down the road, and if I call the cops, it's going to become a whole thing. It might escalate more. What are the cops going to do? They can't be there every day, and he hasn't done anything criminal yet. I don't have a leg to stand on. But eventually, gradually, he leaves me alone, thank God. I think he got a girlfriend, maybe, I don't know. The whole thing has taken place over the last 4 or 5 years, but the last several months, maybe 12 or 18 months or so, have been very quiet. And I could only assume he'd moved on or away or gotten the message or all of the above. I barely even see him. Cut to about 3 weeks ago. I'm sitting on my couch late in the evening around 10 o'clock. When I hear noise out on my sidewalk, I pause and listen, and then someone turns my doorknob. It's deadbolted like always, thankfully. I'm alarmed now, and the banging on my door starts. I can't see who it is, but I know I'm not expecting visitors. The banging turns frantic, urgent, but I wait. More knocking and knocking and knocking. I think maybe it's my parents. Maybe something's happened to my dad. He has a history of heart problems. But why wouldn't they call? Why wouldn't they, right now, just call out and announce who they are? Then I hear a low male voice say, "Man, fuck this bitch." More knocking, but I also know for sure that I don't know who it is, and I'm not opening that door. It also made me kind of mad. Like, fuck me? Fuck you, man, coming up on my sidewalk and banging on my door while I'm trying to play some Animal Crossing. So I go to the door and shout through it, demanding to know who's there. He calls back,
"Nicky, it's me, Ronald Simmons. I've got Eric's beer, let me in."
Okay, my name is not Nicky. I don't even know a Nicky, let alone a Ronald Simmons, and Eric lives 2 more houses down. Clearly, he just has the wrong house, and this situation should be easily cleared up. "I don't know who you are," I tell him through the door. "You have the wrong house, you need to go." But he just bangs on the door some more, insists he doesn't have the wrong house.
"Come on, Nicky, stop messing around and open the fucking door. It's me, Ronald Simmons. I have Eric's beer."
He yells at me, tries the door again, bangs on the window in an absolute frenzy. "My name isn't Nicky," I yell back. "You have the wrong house. You need to fuck off or I'm calling the cops." He just keeps shouting and banging, calling me by the wrong name, begging me to just open the door. And he keeps repeating his name, his whole name, Ronald Simmons.
"It's me, it's Ronald Simmons. I have Eric's beer, open the door. Just open the door, it's Ronald Simmons."
We go back and forth for what feels like an eternity, but probably was only 10 minutes or less. By this time, my kid has heard the commotion and is scared, and I'm not sure if he's going to escalate, but he definitely isn't listening to me. And he doesn't seem to be going away. I'm freaked out by how he keeps begging me to just open the door, like maybe he doesn't have the wrong house at all, and is just trying to get me to come outside. Tom also comes to mind, because he and Eric, they're friends, remember? So even though I don't want to, I call the cops. I tell Ronald Simmons that I've called the cops, and everything goes quiet for a moment. I think maybe that was enough to make him go away. I explain to the operator what's happening, and they instantly dispatch someone. The operator asks if the man is still there, right as Ronald Simmons begins banging on the door and windows again. "Yes, he's still here. I think he's confused, but he won't leave. No, I don't know him. His name is Ronald Simmons." "No, I don't know what he looks like. I can't see him." "No, I'm not going to put my face in the window. He's still hitting the window and door." "You need me to look? To get a description?" Fuck. So I pull away the curtain, then lift the heavy, difficult Venetian blinds. But it's pitch dark and my porch light doesn't work. All I can see is a bicycle ditched on my front sidewalk. I hear a woman shouting, and it's difficult to make out, but it sounds like she's yelling at Ronald Simmons, telling him that he's got the wrong house. I think it might be one of my immediate neighbors, but I'm not sure. It doesn't stop him. He tells her to go away in less than polite terms, and keeps yelling at me. It feels like a lifetime passes, and the awareness that someone, some intruder, is just one wall away is overwhelmingly surreal. I can hear him pacing up and down the sidewalk, talking to me and himself. It feels like maybe he's searching for an entry point. But I can't tell for sure, all I can do is listen. I explain everything to the operator as it's happening, and it really doesn't take very long for the flashing lights to appear on my street. I hear officers calling out to Ronald Simmons, and then an exchange of dialogue. But I'm still not opening that damn door. It's hard to make out all the words, but I distinctly hear an officer say, "So why are you out here bothering this nice lady?" Finally, someone knocks and announces that he's one of the police officers. When I finally open the door, the said officer asks a few questions. Did he actually try to break into the house? I mean, no, but he kept trying my door like a maniac. He was looking for Eric's house down the street. Yeah, I know. He wouldn't stop saying it. I tried to tell him he had the wrong house. Is your bike? No. Well, we'll make sure he leaves with it. You have a nice night now. I have no idea what happened from there. No idea if they just took him to Eric's house or what. I saw him briefly standing in the headlights of the cop car on the road, talking to another officer. Skinny, hair buzzed so short as to be non-existent, clothes a little too big. I've never seen him before in my life. I assume they didn't arrest him. I guess he hadn't really done anything criminal, but it still took hours for my heart to slow down and the adrenaline to wear off. I didn't sleep, just waiting for him to come back or for something else to happen. In the morning, my daughter and I went outside and found that one of our planter boxes on the porch had been demolished. It was kind of old anyway, and probably just got stepped on in the scuffle. I left it alone, because it felt weird to touch anything to do with Ronald Simmons. It took several more days for me to finally gather up the scraps and throw it away. It's been there 3 full weeks, and yesterday my daughter says, "Mom, didn't we hide our spare key under that box?" When I tell you that my soul left my body, she was right. Our old hiding spot had been really high, and it was very hard to access, so the last time we'd used it, I just tucked it under the planter and forgot to move it again. But when I cleaned the box up, I never saw it. I checked the shrubs and soil nearby. I checked the entire small porch stoop area. I checked and checked, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Now, maybe it got thrown away with the box. Maybe it's just in the shrubs or the grass or something, and I just couldn't find it. Maybe. But I changed the locks that day, just in case. To beat it all, after a long, long period of nothing, I was going out in my car one day this week and heard a loud, low wolf whistle. It's Tom waving up at me from the street. I pretend I don't see him and get in the car. There's some other unsettling things going on that are kind of their own story. Like the teenage kid who lives behind me, he keeps throwing random toys and household items into my yard from his second-story apartment window. There's also the 2 times this past month that I've been woken up by what I'm fairly certain was someone tapping on my bedroom window in the small, dark hours of the morning. But Ronald Simmons freaked me the hell out, and has left me in a constant state of vigilance. Living basically alone lends a certain amount of nighttime paranoia. But now I'm always wildly fluctuating between 30 and 99% certain that someone is in my house, or just outside my house, or both. And it doesn't help that it seems like Tom, who still lives down the street, might possibly have some involvement. Or maybe Ronald Simmons was just a random drunk, high, confused dude, and I'm blowing everything out of proportion. Either way, for the love of God, Ronald Simmons and Tom from down the street, let's not meet again. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 508. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Well, it was touch and go there for a second. I don't know what the neighbors are doing. It involves hammering, banging, metal sounds, manly grunting. It was quite close by, but I didn't want to put my head out and ask what was going on. But they felt the need to do it just as I was starting to record. But we got it done in the end. When does this go up? I'm recording ahead again, so my brain's frazzled. Oh, this will be Monday. Monday. Ooh, I think this Steam summer sales this week. Well, to be honest with you, I'll allot myself a certain amount of money and probably not even spend that much. I don't usually go too crazy in sales. It really depends on what they've got on offer and what the deals are. I'll have a look through my wish list, have a look at a few things that aren't on my wish list, and we'll see. Okay. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.